Skoda's Superb has always been a family four-door offering executive standards of space for Mondeo money. The fact that you could only have a saloon put off some who wanted 5 doors from trying the first generation version, but the Mark II model brings a design that offers the best of both. There's also extra quality and more technology. It's still not the sharpest car to drive, but it is exceptional value. Back in the late 90s, Czech President Miloš Zeman, embarrassed at having to use a German car for his official duties, went to see Skoda and asked if they could do him a stretch version of their Octavia family 5-door. Initially, he had no luck. Then, as now, the Octavia was based on a Volkswagen Golf underpinnings, and expecting to create a limousine out of it was asking a bit much. What could be provided though, thanks to Skoda's membership of the Volkswagen Group, was a stretched version of the Mk V Volkswagen Passat. Now, such a thing had already been created for the Chinese market, the engineers having stretched that car's wheelbase by 95mm. All Skoda had to do was Skodarise that package. So was born the Skoda Superb, a big saloon with the space of a BMW 5 Series for the cost of a Renault Laguna. Originally there was to be no Mark II Skoda Superb. This was to be a one-off toe-in-the-water effort by Skoda into uncharted upper market territory. But so successful was the first generation version that we now do have the second generation model that I'm looking at here. It's a fact. Britain's roads are the worst in Western Europe, except perhaps for those in the Czech Republic. Small wonder then that it's taken a Czech automaker to come up with a car that rides beautifully here. Over large wheels and stiff suspension to produce a so-called sporty feel can be a misery to live with day in, day out, even though they sound great on paper. The Superb, in contrast, dispenses with all this nonsense and just serves up a wonderfully compliant ride. The emphasis isn't just on ride comfort either. Refinement is outstanding. And as a result, this is a great car to drive over long distances, or even better, to be driven in. On the road, though the Superb certainly feels big, I found that it shrinks around you. The controls are light and accurate, and the whole car feels really solid. What it isn't is a particularly sporting drive, but if you're after that, it's unlikely that this Skoda will be on your shopping list in the first place. Unlike its predecessor, however, it's on a par with Volkswagen's Passat in this respect. And like the Passat, it comes with the option of the Volkswagen Group's creamy smooth 7-speed DSG, that's direct shift gearbox, semi-automatic transmission, which is great for just easing up and down the gear ratios. The standard models all come in front-wheel drive form, but there are 4x4 options further up the range for those seeking greater traction. The Superb's size is the first thing that strikes you. The first generation version was hardly compact, and this one's bigger still, 35mm longer. It's an interesting shape. From some angles it looks slightly awkward, but from others it looks really classy. Either way, once you're sat inside, it's hard not to be impressed. Listen to the clunk of that door. Yet that's in contrast to the first generation version, which in places really felt built down to a price. Now, this time round, Volkswagen and Audi design cues are everywhere, and there's a really tangible feeling of quality. The fortunate passengers in the back get levels of legroom that you normally only expect in a luxury saloon. And there's 19mm of knee room, more than there was in the old Superb, and space for even the preposterously tall to get very comfy. Hatchback or saloon? It's a perennial poser for buyers in the medium range sector, but the Superb neatly sidesteps it in a way I really like, by being both body styles at the same time. With their twin-door system, Skoda have engineered a novel rear opening for the car that provides access to the 565-litre load bay in the style of either a hatchback or a saloon. Press the left-hand button under the rear badgework here, and a conventional boot lid lifts open. Press the right hand button and the high level rear brake light flashes, and then the rear glasswork and the boot lid meld together to create a conventional tailgate that lifts to create a full-size hatch opening. And this novel arrangement adds greatly to the car's practicality. Now fold the rear seats down and you've now got access to a whopping 1,671 litres of boot capacity. The executive car for medium range money premise that served the Superb so well down through the years holds true with this second generation version. Prices start at less than £16,000 and rise by only around £9,000 through a wide range to a top of the line V6 petrol model with all the bells and whistles. Now for that kind of money you're getting a lot of car. You're talking about between £400 and £800 less than a directly comparable yet smaller Volkswagen Passat, depending on the particular variant you choose. The engine lineup, like much of the Skoda Superb, does look very Volkswagen. The petrol engine range starts with a 1.4 litre TSI power plant that through some dark magic manages to produce 125 brake horsepower and moves this 1.5 tonne car with some alacrity. Next up is a Meteor 1.8 litre turbo with 160 brake horsepower, sitting just below the range-topping 3.6 litre petrol V6, which will be kind of minority interest. Now, as with the Passat, most Superb owners will be looking for a diesel, and here there's an entry-level 1.9 litre TDI with 105 brake horsepower, or the far more satisfactory 2 litre TDI engines that most will choose. I've gone for the TDI 140 here. Most will choose that, but for some the lure of the higher performance 168 brake horsepower version of this engine will be tough to resist. Either way, you get a 2 litre TDI common rail injection unit that features outstanding refinement and a mid-range that's punchier than Ricky Hatton. All models feature between 7 and 9 airbags depending on your spec. You get an alarm, climatic air conditioning, a CD, MP3 stereo, electric mirrors, electric windows all round, the ESP stability control program and front fog lamps. The desirable 168 brake horsepower 2 litre TDI common rail diesel engine is an appealing option, not least because of its economy and emissions. The 48.7 miles per gallon combined fuel economy figure and 153 grams per kilometre of CO2 showing are both impressive considering the performance on offer, and hardly different from the rumbly old 1.9 litre TDI entry-level diesel model. If you really can't face a diesel, then the 1.4 TSI entry-level petrol model is a good option with 125 brake horsepower and lots of pulling power through the gears. It returns 41.5 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 157 grams per kilometre of CO2. The Skoda badge may still be something of a handicap to the Superb when it comes to residual values. Despite the change in public perception of Skoda that's taken place since the dark days of the 80s and early 90s, the marque is still seen by some as being a cheaper alternative to mainstream brands, and for that reason residuals are unlikely to be overly high. Having said that, you're paying less up front and getting more car into the bargain, and this, along with very competitive servicing and repair costs, may produce a surprisingly competitive set of whole life figures once you finish all your sums. A lot of emphasis is placed by journalists on cars being sporty, but Skoda Superb is a model that unashamedly isn't, yet remains an extremely desirable choice nonetheless. In terms of comfort, quality and interior space, it's up with the very best, yet it's brilliant value. There's also a superb range of modern engines to choose from. In other words, second time round, the Czechs have done a fine job in producing a classier car that gets the things that matter to its target market right. A superb job, you might say, and I wouldn't argue.